Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I'm privileged to introduce our next speaker. I don't know if you've noticed, but one of the great things about this conference is we invite so many nationally known educators to this conference, and Erin Klein is one of them. I've been reading her blog, Kleinspirations, for several years. She just told me since 2011. Erin is an award-winning educator, nationally known speaker, which we're privileged to have with us today. Her recent publication, Amazing Grades, was in collaboration with experts in 13 countries from around the world. She's a 2014 recipient of the McCall Pre-K-12 Teacher of the Year in Michigan. Erin has been recognized as ISTE's 2012 Social Media Influencer and a member of the National Writing Project. Just as a little side note, her first two sessions today, I have gotten text from my members of my own district. Oh my God, Erin Klein's amazing. So I'm sure you'll totally enjoy her talk, and thanks very much, Erin.
That's so nice. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm so glad that this is the session that I'm ending on, because I get to share so much of my kids' work, and I think that you're going to love it. So I'm so proud of them as writers and what they do. So I want to start off just by sharing, I know this is nonfiction and persuasive writing that we're going to talk about today, but I want to share a personal narrative story that one of my little girls wrote at the beginning of the year, just to kind of demonstrate the quality of writers that we have in our building, and I'll share some of the resources with you of how we got them to that level. I want to say it's all because of great teachers, but it's really about the kids. It really is. It's about giving them the tools that they need to become great writers. So we use a fantastic curriculum that really allows the kids to be met exactly where they are and to grow exponentially. So I will share that curriculum with you too. It's all free, it's all online, and I'll give you that resource too towards the end so that you can have that. So here's Harper's story. It is Sunday, and she is grade 2, and this was at the beginning of the year, so really a young second grader, really first grade. So here's Harper's story. It is Sunday, October 19th, and my family is going to carve pumpkins. My family gets out the design book, and Tigo, Ellison, and I pick out all the designs that we like. Which design should I pick? I wondered. I must have wondered a little too long, because my dad called, Harper, are you going to pick a design? Yes, I'm choosing the owl design because the owl represents our school, Brookside. I called back. We had been on our back porch for the whole time. Ellison chose a scary face, and Tiago picked a weird, silly face. There is an old newspaper next to the door of the back porch. I have been suspecting that it was for scooping the seeds out until I hear this. Harper, can I have a few pieces of the newspaper, please? It's my mom. Okay, I answer. So I gently place the newspaper down for my mom. My mom calls to my dad, Benjamin, do you want to help scoop these seeds? Sure thing, Dad calls back. Finally, they reach their hands into Ellison and my pumpkins. Wow, this is really cold, my dad says, amazed. Sure is, I say after I get to take a feel. When my mom and dad are done, we get out our designs and we pop out all the parts. My mom traces for my dad to carve. Pop, flutter, splat, go the pieces. Mom outlines the parts for Dad to carve. Squeak, squeak, goes the black Sharpie. Dad pushes the carving tool in and out. Scrape, scrape. She has a lot of C's drawn for that. Goes the carving tool on the pumpkins. My dad cuts out the final piece of my sister's pumpkin and turns all 3 pumpkins around for us to see. Ta-da! My mom says, wow, I love them all, I shout. Indeed, they are really cool, but we don't want the squirrels eating our pumpkins, my mom says. Should we put them on the front porch? I mean, squirrels might eat them, my dad says. Should we or should we not, I wonder. Finally, I make up my mind. Okay, I say in an unsure, squeaky kind of voice. So my mom carries the pumpkins one by one down the driveway and gently places them neatly down the front porch stairs. She puts mine on the top step, Tiago's on the next step, and Ellison's on the bottom. We take a look. Perfect, we all think. Even though carving pumpkins is fun, it's still a lot of work. So that's Harper's story. And I didn't pick hers because it was fantastic. I could have brought just about any one of my writers' stories, and they're all so, so good. So I've never had kids write to this level and to this caliber until I started doing a writing workshop model in our classroom, and really just giving the kids that level of choice and then the tools that they need and letting them go from there. I used to teach writing as a very prompt-driven curriculum, and I did not ever get anything near the quality of writing that I do now. So part of what shapes me of who I am as a teacher of reading and writing is, and really they're so closely connected, but it's all through the writing project. If you've ever had the experience of doing that for professional development, you know how wonderful it is. I did the 4-week course during the summer, and it really let me understand how to be a teacher more of a facilitator, and to really take the kids where they are and to let them grow in meeting their needs to personalize instruction for each one of them. I got to meet and work with at Teachers College in Columbia. I got to work with Kathy Collins, became great friends with Chris Lehman, who have both written just tremendous books on teaching writing. So I knew that I needed to do more in my classroom to allow kids to have more time, because after I would teach a mini lesson, and then 5 to 15 minutes, and then let my writers go off to start writing, and then maybe do a mid-teaching point to highlight something, and then bring them back for quick share time, 2 to 3 minutes. I needed that middle time where they were off writing independently to be longer, because I didn't have enough time to go around and conference with each of my kids or each of my small groups. So I needed something that would come off of my plate, because we all know we've got so much put on our plate. You've got to do interventions, you've got to meet this child's need, you have to differentiate instruction in this way, you have to, not only teach reading, but if you're, especially in the elementary, you're doing guided reading, you're doing phonics instruction, handwriting, you're doing everything, read alouds, and there's so much in our day that I had to take something off of my plate in order to give my kids more time as writers, because I knew I was never going to get the quality of work that I so desperately wanted if I didn't give them time to write. So when I started thinking about my own 2 kids, Riley and Jacob, and that's often how I think of everything that I do in my practice, it starts at home. Like, I think, what do I want for Jacob and Riley to have? Because I always say, every kid in my classroom is somebody else's entire world. And I want for my 2 kids, my Jacob and Riley, to have that same shared experience, for a teacher that loves and cares about them just as much as I love and care about my students. So when I think about, Jacob when he's in first grade now, but when he was in kindergarten, what is the world going to be like when he's in high school? How much is it going to change? When I was in high school, you couldn't have even imagined an iPhone or a smartboard or any of that. I remember when my husband went back to college, he was in management at a restaurant, and then he decided to go back to college and finish his degree in business. And I remember him coming home, and he said, where are the overhead projectors? And I started laughing. He's like, have you been in a class yet where they use PowerPoint? I was like, oh my gosh. So he was so used to just a different style of teaching. And so I just think about how much everything has changed, and how much is it going to change when our kids that we're teaching now grow up to their profession. And are we really arming them with the tools that they need to be successful? So the next clip you'll see is a little video that Jacob made for my daughter Riley, and he sent this to us.
I hope you have a good day. I can't wait to see you.
So that was his get well wish to my daughter Riley, who you can see up top. She was in the hospital getting tubes put in her ears. So I'm in recovery waiting with her, and then I got that video as a text message on my phone, and of course I'm sobbing, and so sweet, and I show it to Riley, and she loved it. But it really got me to think on the way home. Jacob didn't draw her a picture, he didn't buy candy for her, he didn't do anything. Like, he wanted something immediate. He involved technology. I was like, wow, like, this is great. That was just his medium that he knew to do. He wanted to connect with his sister, and he just did it. He had my mom videotape and sent it right over. So, just thinking how seamlessly integrated technology is into our lives, I started to wonder, like, could this be something that really allowed me to have more of an open window of opportunity to give my kids more time as writers? When we were at a hotel restaurant in Washington, D.C., my son wanted to draw, and they didn't have any coloring books, and I had no paper on me, so I just handed him the iPad, and next thing you know, he is drawing. He has the little coffee creamer flipped upside down, the coffee cup, and he's tracing, and he's making Mickey Mouse. So he opened up Educreations, which is an interactive whiteboarding app that's free, and he just started drawing. So I didn't tell him to do this, I didn't give him any instruction, but he knew he wanted to draw, and I was so impressed that he knew how to do that and how to be a problem solver. So when I took a picture of him on the soccer field getting his trophy, the first thing he said, he's like, "Mom, put that on Instagram," because he knows it automatically goes to Facebook and to Twitter. And I was like, oh my gosh, my little ham. But he knew that my mom would see it, that the friends would see it, like everybody would see it, and he was so proud of his trophy. So I really started to think about how technology could play a factor, and I knew that it needed to. So the next video was like kind of what sealed the deal for me. And maybe you're not going to get to see it. I can tell you how great it is. I will tweet this out because I don't know why. There we go. And so the rest gets into the medical field and professional. But so I started, and those technologies exist. So I started to think, how can I engage my students more, incorporate more technology, let them be problem solvers, give them autonomy, incorporate choice, but still teach everyday math, still teach Rebecca Sit and Spelling, still teach handwriting without tears, still do all the things that I have to do, but really just make it more engaging for kids. And thinking about how I'm engaging them to help prepare them for their future. And I know that I want to be the type of the teacher that I want for my Jacob and my Riley to have. So I knew that something had to change. So I started really reflecting on what is it that the kids want to do? What is it that they are doing? So I asked them, like, guys, what do you want to do? What do you like learning about? If we could do anything and you had more time, like what would you want to do? And it was really remarkable. The kids came back with great feedback. They wanted to have more time to talk to each other. They wanted to have more time to read. They didn't want to feel rushed, and I was like, wow, like these are all things I want too. So I started thinking, like, what's actually happening in my classroom? Were the kids in the driver's seat? Like, were they having autonomy and kind of choice in their own learning? Or was I just like hoping that their heads would be opened and I'd pour in all the information and check it off my to-do list and then do the next lesson the next day? And I started to think everything was really teacher-directed, and it was not very student-centered in my room. And I asked myself this essential question, like, would I want to be a child in my own classroom? Nope, I wouldn't. So I knew that something had to change. So I didn't need another program or another structure. I didn't need something to be the magic answer. I needed something to change philosophically, and I needed to open up more time to give my kids these choices that they so desperately needed so that I could really work with them in a more personalized manner.
Oh.
So I felt
Well,
a little
I guess
overwhelmed.
One of the things that's really bothering me are all these concepts and trends and theories. I mean, they keep swimming around in my head like tiny little fishies. It's all right brain this and learning styles that. Do you know what I'm supposed to do? I'm supposed to be able to teach a left-handed, right-brained ENFP number 3 learner with spatial intelligence in a sunny classroom at 2 p.m. on a Friday in May. Times that by 180 and you've got my life in a nutshell.
I'm like, she gets it. So I knew that technology would be able to help me somehow. I just didn't know how. So I really started researching what other teachers were doing. I got connected with people on Twitter. I started finding out just different ways. I found out about Genius Hour and 20% time and project-based learning and all of this. And I said, that's great, but how do I need to solve a problem. I need more time for my kids to write. I need more time for them to read. I need more time to work with them individually. So I turned to technology because I knew that that would help support all of the ideas that I had. This video is really inspiring to show my administrative team to help gain their support for incorporating technology more as well. So that video was kind of instrumental in getting permission to kind of do some of the more creative things that I wanted to do inside of my classroom. I just had to figure out how to do it. So I looked at my schedule and everything that I had to teach, all the different curricular components, and just language arts alone was like this. And then I had to teach all the other content areas, plus have class meetings too, and really just think about everything that I had to do. So I put my schedule out and I started just rearranging the different components. Now we're not on a Monday through Friday schedule, we're on an A through F day. So Monday might be a C day and then next Monday might be an F day. It really just depends on the rotation. So one thing that I found that a lot of teachers were doing to kind of create more time in their classroom for students to have more choice and more discussion was a lot of people were flipping their classroom. Being second grade teacher, I knew at that time I could not have my kids go home and watch a video that I created or that I found that someone else created as homework and then come to school the next day and be ready to discuss it. I knew that my administrative team would not go for it. I knew that the parent population would not go for it. And I just knew that it wasn't going to work. But I knew it could help in some way. So I had to put a spin on it. Instead of doing flipped learning externally, I did it internally within my own classroom. So I did start to create content on videos and my little lessons I would put. And I thought about what would be the easiest way to start, because I didn't have much time to devise. Like middle of the year, I decided to try this. So I started doing handwriting because that was really easy for me to do. And then my spelling program. So we used Rebecca Sitton Spelling at the time. We now use Zaner Bloser. But no matter what way you cut it, like handwriting and spelling are not going to be the most engaging things to teach anyway, so I might as well see if I can find a fun and fascinating way to do it in the classroom. And then I was like, I only have one iPad. How in the world am I going to make this happen for the kids to be able to watch these videos, and how is it going to work? So I knew that I had to create a structure in my classroom that would allow them to rotate to share the iPad. So I created a rotation schedule, and now the kids could watch my flipped lessons when they would rotate. And I could pull small groups and meet with them. And it sometimes was guided reading, and it sometimes was writing workshop, and sometimes it was math support. But this time when I met with my small groups was a free time that I could really work with any student on any skill, strategy, concept that they really needed to work on. So I was able to personalize instruction for small groups in a way that I was never able to do. So essentially it's centers or workstations. And at the high school level, I have friends that call it like learning hubs. And what I did was, when I would meet with these students, I could conference with them for writing workshop. And they were getting more time to work on engaging things that they wanted to. And this is Molly and Erin, and they're actually just watching a science video that they got to select. This is Olivia. These are some of what I call digital workstations and how I set it up. And I've actually got like a 3,000 word post on Scholastic that if you just Google Scholastic and digital workstations, you'll find it, and it has every printable template that I use, every resource, every link to kind of share how I set this structure up as well. So Olivia was making a little animated video on the computer teaching how to count by fives, because she knew that this was an area that she needed to work on. So what was great is after Olivia created this video, I was able to use that as an anticipatory set for a future lesson. So she felt inspired and really, really proud of her work, and she now felt successful in an area in which she previously felt pretty weak in. This is Jalen and Ismail, and they're using the Livescribe Pen, which I am total fan of. And if you're not familiar with it, what it does is it allows you to record every single sound that's happening as you're writing it. So for example, what I had the two of them do to extend one of our social studies lessons, because we never have time to extend anything, so I made it into a station, is I had them just draw and compare and contrast rural and an urban environment. So it was really cute because I could touch anywhere on the paper, and they know, because we've modeled this in class, that they're going to talk as they're writing and do that think aloud. So when they're at recess or later, I can just touch anywhere on the paper, and so I could touch the taxi and hear Ismail talk about why he drew a taxi for the city, and I could touch the little pig that Daylin drew and hear her talking about why she included that in her rural environment. But what was really cool, not only was this a fabulous formative assessment piece to have for their portfolio, but at parent-teacher conference, I remember sitting across from Ismail's mom, and we were talking about social studies, and I was like, oh, actually, let me show you. So I was able to pull this out and just turn the pen on and touch anywhere on the paper and have his student voice be present at the conference without him even being there. So the mom just thought that was the coolest thing ever. So that was also a way to get parents on board for the incorporation of technology into the classroom. So these are little Siftio cubes that were the children were building words with. And so they got to work on that. They're just like interactive blocks, and the blocks actually can communicate with one another. Siftio, S-I-F-T-E-O. And we also did a lot with analog technology. The kids all came back from winter break, and they all had iPads, and the mini iPads. It was the hottest ticket in town. And they're like, Mrs. Klein, do you have a mini iPad? And I was like, nope, Santa didn't bring me one. So, but they all had them, and they all had Instagram, and these are second graders, and I was shocked And I was like, your parents, like you guys are just, you all have this and you're like sending pictures back and forth. Yes, Mrs. Klein, can I follow you? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, you can, but it was just crazy to me to think about all these kids are just so connected and it's just so second nature to them. But I knew we couldn't use Instagram in class. So I made templates and we just did it in an analog fashion. And if you Google Instagram and Erin Klein or Kleinspiration, I have all these free printables too that you can just print off if you wanted to do a bulletin board activity like this. So I was doing a read aloud at the time for Dr. Doolittle, and so one of our digital rotating stations, the kids had this activity to do. So they had to think about if they were the character in their story, what would their character take pictures of, and then what caption would they put, and then who would respond to them and how would they respond. So they were really thinking deeper about the characters in their story. I've had teachers all over the country who have used very similar activities. One of a middle school teachers sent me a bulletin board that she did with this activity, and she had the children when they were studying about the Holocaust, what if they were a survivor? What are some of the images that they might have captured when they were at one of the concentration camps, and what remarks would they have left? So just a variety of different ways that you can use this to think creatively about writing. I also put Aurasma, which is augmented reality, into our workstations. And I started using this in my house with my own son, with Jacob, because he always seemed to need help with his homework at the exact same moment that I was helping Riley with hers. So I needed for him to be a little bit more independent, and I wanted to clone myself, and I could help him more, but obviously I wasn't able to do that. So what I did was I put like a fourth dimensional layer on top of his book. So I set the cover of the book as a trigger image, and what I did was I would preview all the sight words that were in the book, so that if he needed help or got stuck, all he had to do was hover his iPad above the picture, and then next thing you know, my video would pop up and start playing, and I would preview the words with him so that he could have that at his side. So I started bringing that into the classroom and letting the kids do that with book reviews, all sorts of things using augmented reality. So we started using it, AR, augmented reality, in class. And I started also augmenting all of the children's homework. So we know everyday math has some crazy algorithms, even at second grade. So I would make little video tutorials of the home links that I would send home and put those as an overlay so that all my parents also had video tutorials for homework if they didn't understand how to help their child with it. So they could have me at home helping and supporting them. So what I did to get all my parents signed up, just a quick side note, for augmented reality for Aurasma, is when they came to open house, I had an activity that I emailed them about beforehand, like how to download the app and how to get it. And then it was kind of guess who your child is, because I had the children draw a picture of themselves and then list clues about who they are to describe themselves. And then the parents could hover their cell phone above who they think that their child's picture was, and then their video would pop up. And it was so cute. Julie, one of the moms, was standing in front of her daughters, and then her video popped up, and Lola's so cute, this little blonde second grader. And she's like, "That's right, Mom, you got it right, it's me, Lola." And she like blows her a kiss. And Julie, I guess, just wasn't expecting that. And she had never seen augmented reality, and this video of her daughter just pops up, and she just started crying. She's like, "That's the sweetest thing ever." And then, of course, all the other moms who didn't download Aurasma, like my email suggested, were like, "Wait, what was that app? How do I get it?" Because now they wanted it too. And I was like, yes, so it worked. So then all of my parents were signed up to my class channel, and then I knew from that point forward that anything I sent home that was augmented, they would know how to get it. So that was just a quick side note. And if you're interested in learning more about augmented reality, if you Google Kleinspiration and augmented reality, you'll find it. But I've got a free 19-page ebook that I created that'll take you step by step on how to do that, because I often get a lot of questions about that. So I knew that doing these digital workstations, I could now have small groups to really confer with my writers and my readers. And I knew that I needed a space. So I'm going to touch on just how I started this. I tore my entire classroom apart, and I cried like, what am I doing? And I thought I would never ever finish, but I really wanted the space to be open for them, because if they're going to rotate and work in these different groups, they needed everything to be organized. And if you're doing a writing workshop model, you know when you're conferencing with kids, they really need time to be independent. And if they need a sticky note, if they need a glue stick, if they need a Band-Aid, if they need anything, they need to know where to get it, and you need to not be interrupted as the teacher. So I had all the materials available for them, anything that they would ever need. It wasn't my supplies, it was theirs. So everything that I was doing during this Tea for Teacher time, when I was meeting with my kids, I had more time for math games, for extending social studies, for writing conference time. So knowing that it wasn't necessarily always about the technology, it was truly about the teaching, it really allowed me to incorporate just great websites. Biblionasium, just on a side note, is a really great one. It's kind of like Facebook, but for literature for kids, and it's free. And once kids start adding books to their bookshelves, it starts curating a list for the children on, if you like this, you might also like this. So anytime they went to the school library, they always had like an idea of what they wanted to check out. So just different resources and websites that I would use in these workstations that would really just help the children. And at first, it was a little challenging, the planning part. But then I realized that if I involved the children into my lesson planning, it was not only helpful, but it really inspired them to take ownership of the activities that they were doing in these rotating digital workstations. So it was really hard at first, but don't let others tell you that it's too hard, because in life, everything was truly hard at one point.
Broder Ansgar? Ja, det er jeg, ja. Så bra, ok. Ja, hei du. Hei du. Ja. Ja, hva gjelder det? Ja, det er denne her. Ja, vil du sitte? Takk. Ja. Jaha. Ja, så den, jeg har ikke fått gjort noen ting hele formiddag, ja. Nei, jeg beklager at det tar tid, altså, skjønner du, holder på å legge om til et helt nytt system, og da skal alle ha hjelp på en gang. Ja. Så du kommer ikke inn i den, eller? Nei, den bare ligger der. Ok, har du forsøkt å åpne den? Ja, åpne den, altså hvis det hadde vært så enkelt, så hadde jeg jo ikke tilkalt helpdesk, hadde jeg vel? Nei. Vil du ha en kopp og en vann? Nei, det skal være fort gjort, det skal vi se. Du bare gjør der. Sånn. Ja, da er vi i gang. Ja, altså så langt kom jeg også. Ok. Men så stoppet det opp, og så var jeg redd for at noe av teksten skulle forsvinne, så jeg turte ikke å gå videre. Åja, ok. Nei, men du skjønner at inni her, så ligger det kanskje flere 100 sider med lagret tekst. Så for å komme videre, så tar du tak i et ark på den måten her, og så liksom blar du over på neste side sånn. Da fortsetter teksten der. Jeg blar, altså? Du blar, ja. Men når jeg skal tilbake, da? Ja, da bare blar du tilbake igjen. Tar tak der, og så sånn. Der, så er du tilbake til den teksten du hadde sa. Ikke noe... Ok, så den slutter der, og så fortsetter den der, ja. Ok, men når jeg skal avslutte for dagen, hva gjør jeg da? Da bare slår du sammen permene. Ja? På den måten der. Sånn. Da er den lukket der, ligger alt lagret inni der. Altså, jeg risikerer ikke å miste noe av teksten her nå, altså. Nei, alt ligger lagret inni her nå. Ja. I tilfelle du setter fyr på, eller ja, det er kanskje lite sannsynlig. Så. Ja, ok. Nei, for det er noe med det at ikke sant, når du har holdt på med skriftruller, så tar det litt grann tid å konvertere til å bla i en bøk. Ja. Bra, Jens. Ja, men du, før du går, jeg kan bare gå gjennom en gang til. Altså, jeg åpner... Sånn, og så, hva du kalte det? Blar. Jeg blar. Ja, blar videre. Blar frem og tilbake. Ja, og når, ligger det helt. Ja. Og når jeg er ferdig, så bare lukker jeg den. Flott. Kjempefint. Nei, men du, nei, ikke sant? Nå er den sånn igjen, nå får jeg ikke åpnet den. Nå får jeg ikke åpnet den. Ja, du er fra feil side. Du må åpne fra andre siden. Så det er ikke likegyldig, det, altså? Nei, åpne fra den siden der. Sånn. Der er den oppe. Ja vel.
I love that video. So I knew that incorporating all of these technology ideas, I was not a tech-savvy person. In fact, the reason I started my blog was because when I was on my first teaching interview, it was terrible. It was so bad. I got asked a question about technology. I totally bombed it. I remember sitting in the parking lot. I just wasn't expected for it. And I remember telling my mom, like, oh my gosh, I'm totally not going to get this job. I answered this question, it was about technology. And she's like, so what are you going to do about it? Like, stop crying. And I was like, well, what do you mean, what am I going to do about it? I need a job, Mom. And she's like, no, what are you going to do about helping yourself improve? And that's when I decided to take my biggest weakness and try and make it a strength. So that's why I started my blog, to force myself to learn more about technology. So I knew I had to engage the children in more creative ways, and incorporate technology would be a way to help me do that. So knowing about the Common Core and everything that we had to do as far as informational writing, persuasive, and nonfiction, I started thinking, you know, now I've got all this extra time in my classroom to really meet and confer with kids. How was I going to do that for persuasive and for nonfiction? So we do this great artist study that we collaborate with our art department. And so the children get to pick an artist, And then this is how we launch our nonfiction study. So the kids get to pick an artist that they want to study, and then in art class they create an impression of that art piece. And then we start with note cards, and the kids just start researching all about their artist. And we separate it, about their life, about famous works of art that they've done. So they really start creating just fact cards pretty much. And then they get to make their canvas, and but they're learning how to find research, how to pay attention to headings and captions and photos, and how to use the glossary and the index. And then finally, we have a museum gallery to where we even order the kids little t-shirts that say BIA for Brookside Institute of Art. So they really take ownership of being, this museum docent, and then the kids rotate through all the different galleries. And all we do is we turn their little chairs around backwards, and they sit the canvas on it, and then they stand next to their painting. And so it's really simple for us to do, but it makes the biggest difference in the world to kids. So after we guide them through this process, then we kind of turn them on an independent realm to where they can explore an animal now. So they get to pick an animal, and then they get to do more research. And because we can't take all these field trips, we use a lot of virtual zoos that the kids get to go to and visit. So they love getting to see the animals, and we're like little voyeurs watching all these animals in their habitats in the zoos. And so we explore books. We really take our read-alouds. I'm very strategic about my read-alouds in class because I don't often have all that time in the classroom that I want. So I have to, when the kids are eating snack, I'll do my read aloud that I want to reference later in my workshop lesson. So I select these books for a purpose. We're reading nonfiction. I tab them up of important things that I want to talk about for the kids, so they really get to understand what it is and how to apply it when it's our small group time. So some of the resources that I use for nonfiction, I always like to just showcase these because they're free and they're available. If you Google Beth Newingham, N-E-W, New-ing, I-N-G, Ham, H-A-M, Beth Newingham and Scholastic or and Nonfiction, you will find all of these resources. She is, in my opinion, like the greatest teacher that ever walked the planet. She's just amazing, and all of her stuff is absolutely free. So she has all these printables for you, like little anchor charts and everything. So we make books for the children for their nonfiction. And this is actually where we're at in our curriculum right now. And I brought Joni's with us. So the kids are actually just researching their animals. And Joni's selected a blue jay. So they're taking all their research and their notes and just kind of documenting the progress. And this is a little sound sticker from Livescribe that Joni put on here. Because sometimes it's better for kids to think out loud instead of always writing it. So what Joni did is she had a lot more information that she really wanted to include. So with my Livescribe pen, it's an interactive pen where you can just touch this little sound sticker, and then everything that she was saying is all the sound is recorded right there on that sticker. So I can just start playing that, and she can play it and have all her notes for later too. So that's just another a way that we incorporate technology into our writing workshop. So the kids are just taking notes, and it is a very messy process when we do nonfiction. The kids have their books out, they have all their supplies, but they're researching, and they work in partnerships, and they're not in their seats a lot, and it's very, very messy. You can see the kids are up walking around the room. This is my room a few years ago. But they love it, and it really just gives them a chance to take ownership of their own learning. And then finally, they create a very developmentally appropriate book for second grade, and you can see it's obviously very child-friendly, and they come up with their own headings, their own table of contents, and we divide it into 3 different categories. Tell what your animal likes to eat, their diet, and then their habitat, and then their physical characteristics. I've never had a child just do those 3. They always add more. They can't wait to add like a fun facts page or a did you know, and stump the parents with quiz questions. So they really, really get into this project. So Riley, this is my daughter's, she had her topic like what is a bear, and she tells about the bear, and then they have their bold words and what do bears look like, and so she goes through and describes the physical characteristics and where do bears live, and then what do bears do, and then she has an other interesting facts page, and then she has her glossary. So lots of different learning that has went on through the course of this, and I'll show you the unit where I got this from to share with you. This is another child's page for his monkey book, and they come up with he's got his little fun fact cut out there, and the kids are so cute because they love creating the layout of the pages, and it's really interesting. So here's, I'll show you that in just a second. Then they make iBooks as well. So when the kids finish early, just an extension activity that they like to do is just turn their nonfiction book into an iBook. And they literally just take pictures of their actual written book and then just annotate their voice over it. But they think that that's the coolest thing in the world. And then we also augment.
I'm in the National Park Zoo, and there's 4 monkeys that just came. And one of them's medium size, one of them's small size, and the 2 other are big size. I'm in National Park Zoo in Detroit, and the smaller one is red, the medium size is brown, and the 2 bigger ones are black. Thank you, and bring a water bottle to the zoo. Thank you, and come on down next time you want to see us.
So Aaron was someone who finished a little bit early for his project, and he needed something to keep working on so that I could still confer with the kids that really needed my support. So I said, why don't you just make a poster advertising for your monkeys or to give more information. So it was actually his idea. He's like, can I make a commercial and pretend like I work at the zoo and try to get people to come out and see the monkeys? And I was like, sure, great idea, go for it. So then he wanted to make a video and do all of that. So that kept him engaged in the content, but just extending it. So that was great. We also published our nonfiction books and made a little poster using S'more, S-M-O-R-E. So just to create little posters, and you can print these off, and it really made a beautiful bulletin board display too. So the kids got to add images about their animals, and then some of the paragraphs that they wrote, they would incorporate on the poster too. So they got to add that as well as part of their portfolio piece. For persuasive writing, this is my favorite genre to teach because every kid has an opinion and they want it to be heard. So it's actually really easy to teach too, and they're so inspired by it. So our kids go to visit a play, and it always happens right before we do the persuasive writing. And it's just a school play that either the 1st grade or the 5th grade or someone puts on. So when we come back to the classroom, we always review the play that we just saw. And they don't realize that this is a writing lesson and they're getting into persuasive writing. They just think this is fun because they get to critique something they just watched. So we talk about, and I'm like, well, if we really wanted to be like professional about this and, you know, really critique it, like what are some things that we could talk about? So we generate ideas, and they're like, we could talk about the songs, the characters, the costumes, the script. So we just get all these ideas, and I'm like, you guys are so incredible. Those are great ideas. So let's think about this a little bit further. So I give the kids sticky notes. So the little squares are sticky notes, and I'm like, so if we were going to talk about the songs, like what could we say about them? Can you guys help me think of like just 3 ideas? Like what could we talk about for the songs? And then we generate this together, and they're like, we can talk about the creative lyrics, the funny parts, and the songs weren't just singing, like they had actions too. And I was like, you're right, they did. So the kids don't realize that the circled word up top, songs, is going to be their topic sentence. Those are their 3 details. And then they're going to have a concluding sentence. Then I talk to them about, let's generate some words. Like, we don't just want to use regular words. We really want to use words that if we were going to write about this, let our audience know that we're specifically talking about a play. So we talk about like the word perform and all rehearse and all of these different components to build that vocabulary. Then finally I tell the kids, I think you guys could write like the 2nd category. And then so now they get sticky notes, and now they are doing this, and now it becomes less of a I do it to more of a we do it together. And then eventually they're going to do it independently on their own. So I do have the kids in the beginning color code, like their topic sentence might be pink from their sticky note, and then when they write it on paper, it will also be pink. And then their first detailed sentence might be blue on their sticky note and then blue on their paper. But just for my 2nd grade kids to have that one-to-one correspondence, that they actually do have all the information there. So like topic sentence was blue and then green and then pink and then gray, and then that way they know. So then I tell the kids, after they've done those 2 body paragraphs for the play, we go through and we share those and we talk about like, wow, that was a good idea, kids add to their own. And then I'm like, you know what would be really cool is if you guys got to pick something of your own to review it. Like we can do video games, we can do a restaurant, we can do a hotel, a vacation you've been to. Like you guys can pick anything that you want, and they get so excited about that. And I'm like, but before those 1st graders went and did that play on stage, do you think they practiced? Or did they just like get their script and like get on stage and do it? And they're like, oh no, they need practice. I'm like, yeah, just like in soccer, you don't just go play the game, like you have practice first. So they really understand the concept of rehearsal. So I talk about writers rehearse too. So we rehearse and we really start to mark up text. So we look at just a variety of different mentor texts. These are just examples of how I teach it. And we really start to kind of look at that. And I brought one of the writing notebooks because if you guys wanted to check it out afterwards. So this is Harper's that I brought. And we really do close reading. Like our reading and our writing workshop are so closely intertwined. And so you can see just the amount of like markup she has. So we start with restaurant reviews. And so we've reviewed this restaurant, and some of the things that Harper has noticed is that, you know, right here in that first sentence, they name the location. They start with a question. They have an if you like statement, like if you like this, you might really like this. They rate it, like they give it a 5-star rating out of 5 stars. So all these different components whenever we read closely. And then we not only read restaurant reviews, but we read video game reviews, book reviews. We do a lot of immersion before we ever start writing in the genre. And then after we do a bunch of restaurant reviews, then we just make an ingredients list. Like, okay, so what do we notice that all these reviews have? Like, what are some commonalities that you guys notice? So all of them had a rating. All of them talked about the experience, the food. So we really generate those ideas. We always do our body paragraphs first, and then we do the introduction, and then we do the conclusion. So one of the resources that I want to share with you that kind of walks you through every single process of how to do this is a curriculum that our district actually created, and it's all Common Core aligned, and it's free, and it's for all grade levels, kindergarten all the way up through grade 8, and it's available for you. We always have a publishing party too, and I'll share that resource with you in just a minute. So we make it a big deal. Some days, some units, we make it a much bigger deal, and we have cupcakes, we have all sorts of goodies, but the kids get to share their stories because they're published authors, and they get to share that with an audience. We review apps, we review books. Anytime we have a guest author come in, we get on Amazon and we review them. So we do a tremendous amount of authentic reviews too. And anytime like I have a friend or a colleague that writes a book, or if I've read a book, I'm like, boys and girls, I'm gonna review this really quickly. I'll pull up Amazon and I'll actually write a real review with them so that they get to see that. So I want to share with you the resource where you can get all this curriculum for free. And then I also want to share with you for persuasive writing, I brought a different student, Philippa's writing piece with you. She did Magnolia Bakery. But just the kids on their own too, I brought some examples. They're just for fun, they're writing reviews now. It's really interesting. This student just read Fantastic Mr. Fox, and just on her own, like she brought in to me the other day, she's like, I decided to review this book, and it's like this 2-page review, 5 paragraphs, that she did just for fun, because she wanted to be a critic and review a book that she loved. So here is Philippa's Magnolia Bakery review. So Magnolia Cupcake Shop is so good. I go there at least once a week to get a delicious treat. Their cupcakes are delicious. The service is nice, and the atmosphere is amazing. And when I say it's great, it's awesome, because I'm an expert at cupcakes, because I've been eating cupcakes for a long, long time, and I know what's good or not. My mom and sister and me love, love, love Magnolia Cupcake Shop in Manhattan, New York. It's very kid-friendly, and it's good for grown-ups too. The taste of cupcakes at Magnolia Cupcake Shop is amazing. They are very moist and sweet. Some of the toppings are little sugar flowers and sprinkles, and you can ask for only frosting or only sprinkles, or a colored sugar combination. I recommend the birthday cupcakes, and they come with chocolate frosting and a pink or blue sugar flower. They look and smell beautiful. They even have a pretty display case. You should try some now. The service is cupcake-tastic with sprinkles on top. When you order, there's always a person to ask for a cupcake. Not only are they quick, but they're also nice. They greet you with a warm smile, and they never give you the wrong cupcake. The service is so nice, you won't believe it until you see it. Once I was there and I ordered a vanilla cupcake, and it came back so quick, I just couldn't even believe it. I love it there. The atmosphere is amazing too. It's so cozy. I wish I could stay there all the time. They even have cozy chairs. I almost fell asleep. I love the smell of the freshly baked cupcakes. My sister and mom love how big it is too, and so do I. I wish I lived there sometimes. I give Magnolia Cupcake Shop 5 stars out of 5 stars. I really love it, and since I'm an expert, you should go now. Put it on the top of your wish list. So that's the review that she just published. So the resource that I want to share with you, I'll go over to the internet so that you guys can see. Oh, I'm not even connected, and I don't have my hotspot on. Well, I will tell you how to get to it, and it's really, really good. So it's a free resource. If you Google Oakland County, O-A-K-L-A-N-D, Oakland County, and the word atlas, H-E-L-A-S. You will find the complete curriculum. It'll be the first prompt that comes up, and you will see the complete curriculum. Now, you do have to select Common Core once you're there on the site. So once you select Common Core, you can put whatever grade level, and you'll see an entire year's curriculum. And our district, we actually, at second grade, we only do the 3 units. I think they have 8 possible units for grade 2. It's too much for us, and we don't have time in our school year to do it all. In a perfect world, it would be nice, but we know it's better to go deep rather than just kind of skim the surface. So we really go deep into each one of our units of study, and we only do 3. We only do personal narrative and informational for nonfiction and persuasive writing. Those are it. And if there is time, we kind of just do our own fairy tale units that are really fun for the kids. But the curriculum is free, and it really walks you through exactly how to teach this with all the printable resources that you need, and everything is just available for you. Every single lesson and every resource is right there, so it's really fabulous. And I'm so sorry that I did not have that pulled up, but you guys are amazing. This is my first time at ICE, and I just love it, so I'm super excited to be here, and thank you guys so much for coming to the session. I'll have all the student materials up here if you guys wanted to take a peek or look at those. So thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.